Exciting news! The first reviews are out for Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Now, as you know, this was supposed to come out on Wednesday, December 3rd, as I mentioned in a previous video, but it changed last week. There was a kind of a surprise announcement. Disney told us that December 2nd's the day now. So today, it comes out today at 8 o'clock Central Time. Make sure to watch it. The 2-episode premiere. And this is a change, I think, maybe because if it was going to be stay on Tuesdays, then Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve were Tuesdays, so then people would be putting out reviews on Christmas and on New Year's. It would maybe get less attention. I don't know. Could be the reason. Either way, the initial reviews look really positive. Now that's, to be fair, these are the initial sort of hand-picked people that Disney sent out to this screening. Not me. I'm just a chump. But these people are going to be generally more positive, right? Disney's not going to pick people that are super critical of it, right, for the initial screening. That's fine. Doesn't mean that we won't get some critiques, but let me share some of these with you. I think you guys will find these really interesting. So, this is by Phil Roberts. John Watts' Skeleton Crew is a blast. The series effortlessly captures the spirit of the Goonies to deliver a fun, kid-centric Star Wars adventure. It's an energetic, fun story that expands the sandbox with its light-hearted tone. And I like this. He says, great score, great performances, solid start. I'm just excited to see that he talked about the music. I wasn't expecting that. This is not John Williams, of course. I would have heard of it, but some other composer. I'm not sure who. And so that's cool. I love me some good Star Wars music. But talking about expanding the sandbox, remember that. The first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew are fun. This is by Thomas Story. This series brings a refreshing perspective by expanding the Star Wars universe in exciting new ways. It's a love letter to children's adventure films from the 80s. So again, this idea of expanding the universe, expanding the sandbox. So there's going to be some new elements. I'm not sure what those are yet, but that's exciting. I want Star Wars to take risks. That's a good thing. So we can figure out maybe not just what people like, but what works well for the series. And George Lucas, he was a risk taker for sure. Okay, this one is by Mark Newbold. Couldn't be happier with what I've seen of Star Wars Skeleton Crew so far. Energetic, snappy, warm, genuinely funny, pacey, engaging. I really enjoyed it. And he says it's a perfect jumping off point for new fans too. So that's great. This one's Nicola Austin. Says the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew are so much fun. Think 80s Amblin adventure vibes with a sprinkle of early Mando. I love hearing that because I love The Mandalorian, especially early Mando. That's awesome. He says the first episode admittedly takes a while to kick into gear. So that means it's got a little bit of a slow burn to get going. Not unusual with a brand new series that doesn't have established characters. So just bear that in mind. Let's give it time to simmer. Kind of makes me think of Andor. Andor had a slow burn, but man, once it got going, Andor is some of the best Star Wars that's come out in the Disney era. So that's a good sign. He also says, I would genuinely do anything for Neil. What an absolute cutie. So Neil is they'll probably start calling him like Baby Max Rebo, like Baby Yoda. But he's the little blue elephant-looking alien, right? And Grogu being so popular, and I've heard Neil speak in the promos they put out, and genuinely I would say pretty adorable, like a little kid, and so we'll see if Neil becomes a super popular character. This is Neil Vag, different Neil, by the way. He says, the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew recapture the magic of 80s Amblin movies. It's the franchise at its most family-friendly, embracing its silliness alongside a wondrous sense of adventure. Okay, so I love the family-friendly idea. We've seen Star Wars try to go a little more serious, a little more adult, a little more dark in some different, more recent undertakings, like The Acolyte. Didn't always work. Sometimes it's worked. Andor worked well. Acolyte, a lot of people didn't like it. I like some things about The Acolyte for sure. And some things I think were challenged. And I actually think that had more to do with the execution necessarily than the intention. But Mandalorian is one of my favorites. And that's probably one of the more family-friendly things that we've gotten for the most part. There's a few episodes that were a little brutal. But I think this will be a great one to watch with your kids. I'm interested. Are you going to watch this by yourself? Are you going to watch it with your kids? It would be cool to get some kids' reactions, some live reactions, see if people are going to post that. I'm definitely going to watch this with my kids, I know they'll be interested in it for sure. And I think it'll be just like the right age. So, because I've got an 8-year-old, I've got a 10-year-old, I've got a bunch of teenagers. So I bet my younger kids, it'll really appeal to them more than maybe some other Star Wars things have. So that's great. And then we've got Brandon Norwood says, nice to have a sense of wonder in the Star Wars universe. Yeah, right? He says, having kids be the center of this greatly helps. So that's awesome. The original Star Wars, people forget that, yes, it's classic and it's timeless and it's nostalgic, but at this point, we forget that it was also kind of silly. Not in a bad way, right? But there was some silliness. George Lucas always had a little bit of that in there. And as we got older, sometimes adults got a little annoyed by like, oh, it's gotten too silly. No, it was always that way. It was always that way. So it's a balance, right? He said, this is Karen, David Burt, says, I saw the first 2 episodes of Star Wars Skeleton Crew early. I did not disappoint. A surprising opening, a wonderful cast, an intriguing hook for the rest of the series. Okay, interesting. And then Chris Connor says, okay, thought it was pretty solid. Great score. Another mention of the score. And looking forward to seeing more of Jude Law. Interesting. So I've gotten that sense from a couple of these. Like, I'm guessing what it means is Jude Law, this is my guess, probably doesn't appear in the first episode at all. And then in the second episode shows up maybe for half of it or something. So we'll get just an introduction to him, and then they'll flesh him out more as we go on. Obviously, he is a main character, but I wouldn't say he's the main character. Definitely it's this ensemble of kids. They're going to be the core and the heart of the story. He also said, likable ensemble and a refreshing family-friendly series, which really suits the release window. Yeah, so kind of a nice Christmas family-friendly thing to watch together. That is awesome. So are you guys excited about this? I am. I'm very excited about this, in case you couldn't tell. And I do think this really taps back into some of the roots of Star Wars that George Lucas put this out really, I mean, I know it started in the 70s, but in the 80s, right? The 80s is a very Star Wars thing. And so Star Wars has never really dived into that like some of these other series out there have. This trend of 80s vibe, I say, would be kicked off by Stranger Things, and then so many others have gone that way. As I think it's just a demographic thing. Certain folks like myself that have lived in the 80s or were born in the 80s now have reached a certain age and are hungry for that nostalgia. But I think there was something special and magical about that time and the way that movies were made that was very pure and very innocent, and it was I'll be honest, a little less complicated. Pretty simple storytelling. And there's a lot of power in that, right? So hopefully this will recapture some of the magic. Also the sort of the Steven Spielberg era of like an Amblin entertainment, right? So I will post full reviews tomorrow after I get a chance to watch these tonight, along with all of you. So be sure to comment. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. I'll put out a lot of content each week about this series. And I don't just post about Star Wars, guys. I love Star Wars, but I post about all things Disney Plus, whether it's Marvel, whether it's, heck, National Geographic, heck, whether it's a bio documentary, whatever it is. I'm going to put out Disney Plus content here first for you guys. And I want to build a community, so be sure to comment, talk to me, talk to each other. Let's encourage the best content of Disney Plus to be out there. Thanks, guys. Take care.